Hey, what's up, podcaster? It's your host, Adam A. Adams, and today's going to be a pretty good episode. I've got somebody on the show that launched their show recently. So as we record, it's only been a month or two. It's kind of new. They've got like 12 episodes out. They're stoked. They're excited. They've got a lot of really cool things happening. So I don't know where we're going to go, but she's going to ask whatever questions she wants. The podcast is called Healthy, Sexy Nutrition, as if nutrition was sexy. Sometimes we don't like eating our broccoli, but she's got a picture of herself eating her broccoli. And that's like really the main picture on the podcast. So she's there to try to help people to be able to be better at nutrition and think of nutrition as sexy. So we're going to jump in. She's going to ask whatever she wants, but it's going to be helpful for you to listen to since she's a little bit into her journey and still has some questions. So for you listening, like if you're about to launch, today's going to be a really good episode for you to listen to. And also, if you've been doing it a minute, so is she, and she's going to be asking the same questions that you need to know. So let's just dive in. And I do want to say one quick thing. I like your copy. I really enjoy, this is Michelle Fox as my guest today. She titles her stuff like really, really well. Just one thing, just a takeaway for you, the listener. If you're titling your own podcast, if you're working with us, awesome. We title it for you. We do a good job. But if you're titling on your own, you've got to think the way that Michelle is thinking, because she titled some of these things herself. And I'm just going to point out the bonus episode that had come out back October 29th of 2022. It's a bonus episode. It says, The Dirty Little Secret in My Marriage. What are you thinking when you read that? Like, you need to know the juicy stuff. You're like, what is she going to say? Is it going to be bad? Is it going to be juicy? Is it going to be sexual? Is it going to be like, what is it going to be? Because I want to know, like, is there some issue? Is she going to have a divorce? Like, there's so many things that you consider when you see that title that you kind of have to listen to it. And that's the big goal of having a title for any episode, is what is going to make somebody feel like they need to listen. Okay. Even many cases, my team, they like to run things by me because I'm picky about copy. They like to run things by me and they'll say something like, the fantastic ways of growing a podcast. And that's good. That's good. But two things. One is positive things don't sell. Negative things sell. That's unfortunate that we have to think like that. So when you're like, oh, the good ways of growing a podcast, it's too much roses and it's too much flowers and it's too much whatever. Those things don't make somebody need to do it. Secondly, people already think that they know what that is going to be about. And third, people don't know exactly what they're going to get out of. So I always change it to be like the 3 things you need to start today to grow your podcast. And now people are now curious and they'll actually listen. So think of it like that. Take a page out of Michelle's book. Michelle, I'm going to turn it over to you. Ask me whatever you want. This is your coaching session, and I'm excited.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for having me. And yes, I have so many questions around monetization. That is actually my number one question. And I love your energy. I love that you're already bringing it. So I figure I'll bring it as well. Like, that feels a little bit big, but I would love, even if we broke it down, like, yes, I am 10 episodes in, I guess 12 officially, if you look at my trailer and my bonus. Thanks so much for highlighting that. And I am loving this, Adam. Oh my goodness. It feels like every episode just gets better and better because, one, I'm learning my subject. I'm learning my audience a little bit better. 2, I am feeling like I'm in the flow. Like, I think I've got something here. 3, the numbers actually back that up. So now I'm like, I've got the audience. So now how do I monetize this podcast?
Awesome. This is a fun one. You know, I used to have a perfect track record with our clients. So I always pour into the clients, this is how you monetize. And then I had one guy who had a phenomenal podcast and quite big audience, but he couldn't monetize it. He couldn't figure it out. And so I've learned from crushing it with a lot of people and our own podcast. I've learned a lot. And I've also learned from my mistake of like working with this one person, which is still a friend and all that, but it just didn't land. It didn't work. He wasn't able to monetize. And so let's break down ways of monetizing. I've got an episode, I believe it's definitely in the first 30 episodes that publish. And I will try to have my team link up the right one. The title is something like this. There's more ways than one to monetize. It's something like that. It's like there's more than one way to monetize a show. And in that episode, I talk about the 7 ways. And later on, like after 200, 300 episodes now, I learned an 8th way, which I can share also. But that episode went into the 7 ways that you would monetize a podcast. And here's what I want to share is like, we get attached to the one way that most of us have heard, and we go that route. And in some cases, it doesn't actually serve us. So Michelle's goal, and maybe your goal, if you're listening, is how do I monetize my show? I've been doing it. I've gotten 12 episodes or any other number of episodes. I'm adding value to the right person. Perfect. And I have enough listener base that I think that I might be able to start monetizing. So how do I do it? I'm going to try. I still want you to go and check out that episode that's in the show notes so that you can listen to the full thing where it's only about that. I'm going to try to highlight some of these things. Number 1, the way that most people believe you can monetize a podcast is something called CPM. It basically means you have an advertiser paying you a dollar amount per 1,000 downloads that you have. So let's just say Michelle is crushing it and she is at the top 10% of all podcasts in the whole world, which means she has about 300 downloads per episode. Okay, so we go to these CPMs over here. If we go to this model that we've heard of, this other model, then we're going to be able to get paid $20 CPM. And we're so excited. Oh yeah, $20 CPM. That's the average. You know, it can go from 5 CPM with basically $5 per 1,000. The M is for meal, which is like, what is that language?
Is it the mill?
Yeah. What Latin? Is that? Latin. Yeah. Latin. Yes. So meal is Latin for 1,000. And I think in Spanish, I was just in Mexico a few days ago. And yeah, that's what they say is meal. It's 1,000. Mm-hmm. And so they've definitely taken that. But most of us think meal means million or something, but it means 1,000. Anyway, cost per 1,000 downloads. And we're thinking, all right, there's 5 CPM up to 60 CPM. And this is how I'm going to monetize. And so we get hung up on this one way that everybody else tells us to do it. And half of those people poo-poo on it and say, you can't make money. You can't make money with a show because you're probably not even in the top 10%. Not you, Michelle, but most of us, 90% of us are probably not in the top 10%, which means we probably even have less than 300. We probably have 100, for example, downloads per episode, which is still good. You're speaking to a small conference of people every week. That's still beneficial. But if you're looking to monetize with CPM model, unfortunately, if you get 20 CPM or 30 CPM and you have top 10% work value here, 300 downloads, let's just call it 333. You're barely above the top 10%, barely. 333, a third of 1,000. Okay. And you are getting paid, let's just say $30 CPM. Guess how much money you're going to make every single episode? $10.
Like 10. You're right.
Yeah. It's a third of 30.
Ooh, I could get a free coffee each week.
You could buy a coffee I'm drinking coffee right now. Guys, this is on you. Thank you for listening. My CPM is working and I was able to afford this coffee.
Yes, we did.
All right. So don't go the CPM model because you are worth way more than that. So this is how I coach my clients. Instead of doing CPM, I want you to reach out to the other person. Instead of using an advertiser, which is generally, they don't really care who your listener is. They just want to pay the lowest amount to get in front of the most amount of people. That's what their goal is.
Makes
and
sense.
The people that follow the CPM model, they are attracting people that are going to give them 20 or 30 CPM. So they're making like $5 or $10 every single episode. And basically, your time is worth a lot more than that. So you're probably losing money. It's probably taking money out of your pocket if that's all you're doing. And I had this one client, and I'm going to talk about him, and I'm going to make fun of him, even though he's like actually one of my best friends. He's like really one of my favorite people. But I had the hardest time convincing him to stop doing this. And what he was like so excited about, I'm going to use the air quotes for the people not listening, dynamic ad insertion. This is what it's called, dynamic ad insertion. And this is advertisers. This is CPM. This means he's part of some group. I think it might be Buzzsprout or Libsyn, and they can dynamically insert random ads. And what he had, going back to Spanish and Latin and mil, meaning 1,000, going back to that, one of his ads, and it was actually the first one. The first ad came up and it was in Spanish, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with Spanish or any other language. It's just the point is his podcast's not in Spanish. So I would venture to say only 5% of the people that listen probably understood what that ad was about anyways. I certainly didn't.
Sure.
So I'm listening to his podcast. He's my client. And I'm like, bro, get rid of these ads. And he's like, oh, I would get rid of them, but I'm making money. I'm like, how much money are you making? And he looks it up. It's like $4 and $4 per episode that he's making. And I'm like, I will triple this, man. Right. I will give you 3 times that amount of money and have you have a third of the ads. So I'm like, I'll give you 12 whole entire dollars.
Ooh. Rich
so
man.
That you can only have one 30-second ad instead of a 1-minute Spanish ad and then a 30-second ad about some random lingerie that his person doesn't care. And then another 30-second about some like furniture store in a random city that like only 2 of his listeners probably are in that place.
Ouch.
And so he's basically, I always talk about like in the beginning, you want to hook your audience. You want to really get them to like listen and know why they're listening. And for him, he let down his audience because he had this 2 minutes of ads, one of them in Spanish and the other 2 just doesn't even matter to his person. He had, by the way, Chris is his name. He had a podcast about money, about finances. So why would you have some random Spanish ad? I don't know what it's about. Maybe it's about some cleaning solution. And then you have an ad about lingerie. And then you have an ad about like some furniture store. None of that really serves his audience. And so these are what we call advertisers, random advertisers who barely give you any money. Yeah. So the way that we talk about this with our clients is instead of doing that crappy model, why don't you instead reach out to people that align with your audience? And what you want them to do is you want them to be a partner of the show. So instead of an advertiser, it's more of a partnership. Instead of an advertiser, it's a sponsor. It's a part of the show. And you're reaching out to them. And the benefit, let's just say you've got like 300 people listening and just hit the top 10%. What I want you to do is you go to this person who shares your exact avatar. They share. They don't pull away from you, but they can add to you. So maybe you've got a coaching program. Maybe you've got an online course. Maybe you've got a consulting. Maybe you have T-shirts to sell, for example.
Yes, and all the above, by the way.
Yeah,
yes.
Perfect. And so now you've got somebody that you're reaching out to. Let's say that they have a different type of coaching, or maybe they have a different type of support for that type of person. For example, I'm going to be a real estate investor for a second because I know that area pretty well. I'm going to be a real estate investor. My goal is I've got a coaching program in real estate. And so I let's just say I charge my client $30,000. And my big promise to my actual client, if that's what I do, is you give me $30,000. I work with you for a year. And at the end of the year, I want to make sure that you own $10 million of real estate and that you are making 60 grand a year, passive net cash flow. So there's this big promise. You give me 30 and then you get 60 all the time. And that only happens in the first year. And it's like, wow, that's pretty compelling. But then I think of who else serves my exact audience. Well, my listener needs to buy an asset and they probably don't want to have all the money. They probably want to borrow money to leverage a bank. Well, then what I'll do is I'll reach out to a lender. I'll reach out to somebody who's like a commercial lender or a hard money lender or just a regular bank, like let's even call it Chase or Wells Fargo or something like that. So I reach out to Chase or Wells Fargo or a private money lender or a hard money lender or a commercial lender. And I say, hey, my perfect listener, the person that listens to my podcast, they're trying to close deals. I coach them and I help them to be able to close on these deals. And I don't know who to send them to for the money. They need somebody to be able to buy these assets, right?
Love it.
And you serve that same person, and you're really good at serving this person. And so you have this sales pitch. It kind of goes like this. Hey, brother, I know that you guys are trying to grow your lending business. I know you were trying to put more money out on the streets. You're at 3 million. I heard that you're looking to deploy 10 million. Maybe it could help you to be able to be in front of my audience. Now, my audience is a real estate investor. On my podcast, I bring on other real estate investors that teach them how to buy these assets. The only problem is they need to be able to have access to the money. And you guys are a really good company. What I'm looking for right now is I'm looking to have somebody as a partner of the show. I don't just want any random advertiser, and I don't want it to just be a short-term thing. What I would like is something that's a real win-win, where I know that you can serve my audience. And so I'm going to be looking for a lender just like you. And I want to come to you first because I know that you guys crush it. I've even worked with you before, and you guys have low cost. And I just want to promote you. If you can't do it, and there's a reason, by the way, why I say if you can't do it, there's some psychology there. It goes to copy here in a moment. We'll get to it. Okay. If you can't do it, it's totally fine. I understand. I have a couple of other lenders that I might be able to reach out to you. I just wanted to give you the opportunity first. Now, there's a reason why I'm saying I want to give you the opportunity first. It's fear of missing out. And there's a reason why I wanted to say, if you can't do it, because now they have to prove that they can do it. Because like our human nature is like, why do you think I couldn't pay for your podcast? Why would you say that I couldn't do that? Like I clearly can. And now they're like actually going to prove themselves to you. So you use this copy, you use this script that I just gave you to help persuade the perfect person who shares your avatar to get behind your podcast and be a sponsor of the show. And then you use what's called price anchoring and even time anchoring. So many of you who are listening have already studied what price anchoring is. It's a reason why on my website, I put my most expensive package first. Boom, cat's out of the bag. Now you know exactly why I do it. I say, here's a package that is crazy expensive that almost nobody can afford. Here's a package that you probably can afford. It's much less and almost has as much stuff as the other one. And then here's my lowest, tiniest package that would be dumb not to do, but it hardly gets any of those other things that you get. And so somebody sees, let's just pretend it's 40,000. Somebody sees 40 grand and they're like, whew, not sure if I could do 40 grand. And then they see 20 grand and they're like, whew, that's like half the price. Maybe I could do that. Because you price anchor, you get them attached to this bigger number, which makes the actual number that you want them to do look smaller. And so on my website, I've got this giant package, which I know only 10% of the people are going to do because 10% of the people want the biggest and best. They always want to spend the biggest and best. They believe that they deserve it. They believe that it shows something about them. They believe that that's the type of person that they are, and they just want the best, and they want you to hold their hand and everything. So they're just going to do it anyways. 10% of them are going to want the biggest deal, the cheapest. They don't have as much money, or they want to feel frugal. So they're always going to go the smallest. 80% of the people are going to go to the middle. They want Goldilocks. They're like, that one's too hot. That one's too cold. This one's just right. That one's too soft. That one's too firm. This one's just right. That one's too expensive. That one doesn't get me enough. This one's just right. And so it helps me to persuade the person going to my website that the middle package is the best package, but it's all with price anchoring. The way that we do this in the script that I'm giving you right now, when you're talking to that lender for this example, is you say, ultimately, what I'm looking for is a year's contract, and it's just going to be 10 grand a month. What I want to do with you, because I really want to work with you, is let's just do it for 6 months and do it for $6,500 a month. And if you love it, we can always extend and we can keep doing it. And then you say, and I want to make sure that you do it for at least the 6 months because, and you always follow the whatever you're saying with after you say the word because psychologically, here I'm doing it to you now, because psychologically, it proves something. It makes somebody be able to believe and trust exactly what you're saying. So you say this same thing. You say you price anchor and time anchor 1 year, 10 grand a month. And then you were like, I just want to do it for 6 months, $6,500 a month, or whatever you say, $3,500 a month, whatever you feel comfortable with. Even though you would normally get paid $10 for that episode, you're about to get paid $3,500 for this episode instead.
Love it.
So then you just say, I want to just do it for $3,500 and have you for 6 months. And then you say, and the reason that it needs to be at least 6 months is because if you really want my listener to trust you and follow you and actually call you, it's going to take a little bit of time for you to stay in front of them. I don't want you to just record I don't want to just have you a sponsor, an advertiser just for 1 or 2 episodes. You might not get anyone to call you. It might be a waste of your time or money to even be part of it. But if we do it for 6 months, you're going to be able to really stay in front of that person because you continue to stay in front of them frequently. They're more likely to trust you. When they trust you, they're going to use you instead of one of these other companies.
Yes.
And then you just finish off the script with, do you have any questions? Or you might just say, what questions do you have before we get started? In a way, you're assuming the sale. You're assuming that you've given a compelling offer. It's an obvious thing that they're going to do. It's going to benefit them. It's going to benefit you. They're getting a really good deal. And then you're just saying, what questions do you have before we get started? So you're like, I know you're going to do it, but you might just have 1 or 2 things that we need to get out of the way so that you can finalize that decision. And so that's how you end your script. And what has happened is over a dozen of my clients that have used that script in that way have gotten their money immediately. I always share Julie Hawley is a real estate investor, and she did the exact same thing. She came to me like you, Michelle, and she came to me on a coaching call and she's like, Adam, do you think I might be able to make any money from my podcast? I've got about 300 people downloading every single episode. And I'm wondering if I could do this. And I think it'd be nice if I could get like $100 a month just to kind of offset some of those costs. And I was like, Julie, set your heart on something. I want to get you $5,000 a month. And she's like, whoa, no. She basically had her own ceiling, this glass ceiling that she could have broke through easy, but she had it. I told her I wanted her to make $5,000 a month. Guess what she did? She still didn't believe me. So she went to half. She pushed herself and she's like, maybe I could do $2,500. So then she and I sit on a consulting call, just like I'm with you, Michelle. And I pour into her this exact thing. And we outline a few of the people that could be sponsors, like partners of her show. And then she reached out to one person, one time. And now she's getting $2,500 a month. She believed she could only get 100. So she got 25 times that.
Fantastic.
And she's continuing to make that every single month. And now at least she has this proof of concept. And now she's starting to believe that maybe she's worth $5,000 a month. Amazing, right? So you've just got to use this copy, the script, the way that I shared, write it down, listen to this episode a few times, rewind, play, write it down, practice it in front of the mirror, practice it with your spouse, with your business partner, with your kids, whatever you can do, practice going through using the same words that I used. And if you possibly can, try using the voice inflections as well. It's important because some people, they'll want to raise private capital. And I used to coach people to raise private capital because I've raised millions of dollars of private capital. And so I used to pour into people and help them to be able to do it. And they would come to me and I would tell them a script. I would say, what I want you to say is we've raised a little over $1 million and have just a couple hundred left. And that's why I'm calling you, because I want to see if the goals that you told me before, if you're still looking to achieve those. And if you are, maybe you could do 100 or 200,000 into this one so you can start making that goal. So that's the script. That's how you say it. That's the exact voice inflections, the voice tonality. And then they go and do the same thing. They see the words that I just said. And then they go, we've raised a little over $1 million and have just a couple hundred left. That's why I'm reaching out to you, is because I want you to do this. And it just sounds so freaking salesy.
Right.
And they're emphasizing the wrong parts.
Right.
You want to emphasize we've raised a little over $1 million and have just a couple hundred left. So the just is the emphasis, not the $1 million, where they would say, we've raised a little over $1 million. And it's like, bro, it's not coming across the way that you want it to come across. you're making someone wonder what you're hiding, what you're selling, because they're like, whatever. So we would talk about the voice inflections. And so for you, Michelle, if you want to go through that, just listen to it a couple times. And you, the listener, just listen to the voice inflections, because like we need to skip past some of the parts and not emphasize them, or else it sounds too salesy. And everybody wants to buy. Like your sponsor, your potential sponsor, you're about to have sponsor, your partner of the show, they literally want to sponsor you. They actually do want to spend money with you so that they can make money. But if you give them the pitch by emphasizing the wrong parts and they feel like they're being sold, they will not buy. Everybody wants to buy, but they don't want to be sold. I walk into the clothing store, I guarantee I want to buy a shirt, I want to buy pants, I want to buy shoes. And unfortunately, the salesperson, the customer service agent comes up to me, the car salesperson is like, how can I help you? What are you looking for today? Is there anything I can help you find? They say. And guess what I say? Oh, I'm just looking. I'm just browsing. I'm just window shopping. Do not help me. I don't want to be sold. I want to buy, but I don't want to be sold.
Right.
I definitely want the product, but I don't want you to push me. But if you use the right voice inflections and chill on the right parts, then you're helping to basically switch your magnets. You got a north and a south side of a magnet. And if you're pushy, if you're too pushy and you're maybe showing the north side, well, everybody else who doesn't want to buy is showing their north side too. And so you repel from each other. All you got to do is just turn around. That's it. Just you are going to be able to attract people to you if you just turn around, show your south side, bring them, draw them to you. And then boom, you click so fast and so easy. Somebody, you walk up and you're like, hey, I could help you with this. I want to help you with this. And then use some of that psychology, like fear of missing out, price anchoring, etc., the ones that we already shared. And then that person's inside their own head, they already want to buy, but they're being helped to buy because it's becoming their decision. And they're feeling like they have to chase you. They're feeling like you're on the south side, they're on the north side, and they're going to come right after you. And they're going to say, yes, I need to do this. Don't let me miss out on this. I need this opportunity. Don't give it to somebody else and have me lose out on the business that they could get. Right. And so you are able to actually get something. There's a ton of other ways to monetize that are in that other episode that is already in the show notes. But I will share just one other way to monetize. It's the way that I monetize.
And actually, before we jump in, may I ask, because you talked about the pitch and the intonation. So I guess the assumption is I'm talking to my future sponsor versus sending them an email.
Thank you for bringing that up. That was brilliant.
All right.
Yes. This is one of the problems with that one client who's a good friend, but he never was able to monetize. It's because two basic reasons. One reason is because he was going after the real cream of the crop, like these giant companies that are making millions or billions, actually probably always billions for in his case, of revenue a year. And what they have in place is gatekeepers. And I kept trying to convince him not to go with these companies, with these gatekeepers, where the only way for you to get a hold of them is LinkedIn private messages and emails. He wasn't listening. He wasn't having it. He didn't know any other way to do it. So he kept going after the companies that had gatekeepers. As a result, he never was able to monetize his podcast. He tried for 4 months straight. Well, maybe 3 months straight. The first month it was like coaching and preparation. And then the second, third, and fourth month, he was listening to almost everything I said, except he kept going after these giant companies with these gatekeepers. So he was emailing and DMing. And Michelle Fox just brought up like this brilliant piece that I neglected to share with you, the listener. And it is like, we are actually having conversations with these people. Mm-hmm. So these lenders, it's the representative that I always communicate with. If I know the owner of that company that also serves my avatar, I call the owner on my cell phone.
Nice.
We don't have to go for the biggest companies. We have to go for the companies that we resonate with. And when we do, we just have a natural conversation that we use some psychology with. And then we just have a conversation, which now they're hearing voice inflections, they're hearing our heart, they're hearing our desires, and they can hopefully, if you do it right, they can feel that we care how they do. Right. And you could hear that probably in my voice when I was sharing the pitch. It wasn't about me. People have made mistakes by going in and being like, hey, I really need a sponsor. This podcast is really costing me a lot of money. And I was wondering if I could potentially take your money so that I could keep doing my podcast. Would you be willing to give me some money? And this is how the other people are doing it. This is actually, yeah, so they come in and they think about themselves. They think about their own problems. Well, that's not the problem we got to be thinking about. When we're giving a pitch, a sales pitch, when we're trying to bring on a sponsor, we got to be thinking about their problems. Hey, I know that you want to have 10 million on the street and not 3 million on the street. I wonder if I could help you by you partnering with me. I want a sponsor of the podcast anyway that I believe in. You're somebody I believe in. I've been using you for a long time. I'd love to give you this opportunity. If you can't, it's no big deal. I could reach out to some other companies, but I really want you to have the value. And now it's just reversed. And so this person can feel that you care about them, that you're looking out for their interest, not your interest. Not that you don't want your podcast to cost you money anymore, because it's been draining you this for the last 12 episodes or 30 episodes or 10 years. It's been draining you. Don't think about your own problems. Think about their problem. Solve their problem. That's how you're going to be able to sell. That's how you're going to be able to bring somebody in as an actual partner of your show.
That is brilliant. Thank you.
So the other way of monetizing is the way that I monetize. Well, I do have affiliate relationships with pod decks, which are these like cards that you can ask random questions. I have affiliate relationship with the microphones that I use, the soundproofing on my walls, the lighting that I use, the webcams that I use. I have got affiliate relationships with all of these, and I got direct Amazon links so people can go to growyourshow.com/PDF and they can download a PDF of all this equipment. And if they buy it, I might make a couple of dollars. So one of the ways that I make some money, it's only like $20 a month, honestly, is just when people buy these products.
Nice.
That I believe in, that I trust. But that's not good money. That's not great. It's $5 an episode or something, right? It's going back to the CPM model. So it's nice to have. It's beneficial. And sometimes my listener gets a small discount and I can make a tiny bit of money. The way that I really, truly monetize and actually just paid off 2 rentals. So I'm a real estate investor, by the way. And I have these couple of houses. They're not expensive, but they have had a mortgage on them since 2015, I believe. And I had been carrying this high interest mortgage for a long, long time. And then my podcast brought in a ton of money for a few months in a row. And I ended up just being like, what do I do with all this like capital? And so I ended up just like paying off these 2 rentals. How did I do that? Like what did I do?
You got me leaning in even more.
Yeah. So I am not using $3,500 a month on a partner of the show. Now, although that's a wonderful thing and way better than CPM model, it's great. Do it if you like to. I don't make a single dime off of my podcast having sponsors or advertisers or partners of the show, any of it. How I make my money is by selling my own product and service to my listener and my guest. So here's what I do to be able to make money. And we're making like a ton of money, like almost 6 figures a month, right? Where it's decent.
Nice.
How do we pull in 6 figures a month? And I only work 12 hours a week. How do I do that? Well, my podcast episodes add a shit ton of value to my exact listener that I want to add value to. And a small number of them who have the money and the time and the commitment end up calling me and hiring me. And then maybe they do my top package. Maybe it's 40 grand. Maybe they do my middle package. Possibly it's 20 grand. Maybe do my bottom package. Maybe it's 10 grand, give or take, right? And so 10% of them always do what? The top. 10% of them always do what? The lowest. 80% of them always do what? The middle. And so if I can just pull in 1 or 2 clients a month then that's 40 of the $100,000 that I make every month. That's 40 of the grand. That's nice. 40 of it just from brand new listeners. So where does the rest come from? The rest comes from my guests. So I got real lucky. And Michelle, maybe you can follow this exact path as well. Who knows? I interview on my podcast other podcasters. Genius, right? And many of them will have me get on their shows. But one thing is, I know how to serve a podcaster. And in this case, with you, you're asking me questions and I'm able to pour into you. And maybe we'll work together. It is possible. Absolutely. And also, in many cases, I'm interviewing the other person, not as a coaching call, but just interviewing them and adding value to them. And there's a law of reciprocity. And it's a law for a reason, because it's there, because we feel like we have to do it. I can't take anything for free. When somebody tries to give me something for free, it's incongruent with my feelings, my mood, my intentions, and I cannot live another day until I find a way of paying that person back.
Right.
And when we add value to other people, in many cases, very difficult for them to go to the next thing without somehow trying to pay us back. How can they pay us back? A, they can give us referrals. B, they can hire us. C, they can bring us onto their podcast and get us in front of their audience. So with me and my podcast called The Podcast and Podcasting, the one we're recording right now, I bring on other podcasters, whether it's like this, where I'm pouring into you anyway, or whether it's somebody where I interview and add value to them. At the end of the pod, one of the questions that I always ask, the other types of ones, is what did you struggle with? And I follow it up with, what are you currently struggling with? So I ask my actual guest, what are you currently struggling with? Now that benefits them because I could probably add some value to them. It benefits the listener because then the listener knows what somebody who's already been experienced, what they're still working on. And it could benefit me and my company as well. By after I hear what they're worried about, I could either coach them on that call. I could say, man, why don't you just try these 3 things? Why don't you just try this process? Or at the end, I could say, hey, you mentioned you were still struggling with marketing and advertising. You didn't know where to start. You didn't know how to advertise. You didn't know where to put the money. If you want to have a discovery call with me, it'll be free. It's just for me to see if I can help you and for you to know how I could help you. If you want that, we can schedule that. No big deal. So I just finished an episode with a podcaster. I know what they're working on, struggling with, going through. At the end, I might just say, hey, I might be able to help you with this thing. If you want me to, we can schedule a discovery call. Maybe 1 out of 6, only 1 out of 6, possibly. Maybe it's not a ton, but 1 out of 6 of the people that I interview, and I'm interviewing like 4 people a week. So every other week, I get one person that says, yeah, let's do a discovery call. Let's see how you could help me. Let's see if paying you some money would benefit my podcast. Let's see. We'll check it out. And out of those 1 out of 6, maybe I'll sell 1 out of 3 of the actual ones. So 1 out of 6, every week and a half, I'll have 2 people. And so every 4.5 weeks, I'll get 1 client. And maybe that 1 client is worth $40,000 to my company. And so that's how I make some of that other money that is coming from through the podcast. So for me, to be honest, like I definitely don't want anyone to do CPM. It's crappy. Chris from the Money Show with the lingerie and the Spanish and the furniture warehouse.
Furniture store.
Like he's wasting time, money, and energy, and he's not serving his person.
Right.
1 step up out of this 8 ways to monetize, he could have a partner of the show. And another step up is what I do. I'm like, I couldn't care less about $3,500 from some sponsor that might be possibly taking away from the call to action that I want my listener or my guest to hire our company.
Sure.
So instead, I get focused and granular on only thinking about how do I help my listener or my guest become a client. Not just because I'm an asshole and I want money. That's not the only thing, but it's because I care about them and I know that I can help them. Right. And if I truly care and I know that I can help them, I know I can get them to the next level that they're struggling with and they can monetize it, then it makes the most sense for me to not be bashful, but to be able to offer somehow. And for our company, honestly, like not bragging or something, I work between 4 and 12 hours a week.
That sounds like the dream.
And like we're pulling in 6 figures a month. Yes. And I'm helping people. I'm serving people. I'm adding a true value. And anyone listening can implement some of that. Maybe they'll go from 60 hours to 40 hours, and they'll go from 30 grand to 40 grand. And then they can take that next step to 40 hours to 20 hours and from 60 grand to 70 grand or whatever. But if they use some of what I just shared, it can be a lot bigger than even having a partner of the show. And Michelle, like, how do you make money? Like, you're a coach, you're a mentor. Is that true?
I am both.
How do you charge? Tell me about that. And maybe we can just like outline it for you more clearly, specifically.
I would love that. So similar to the name of my podcast, Healthy, Sexy Nutrition, I do group coaching programs through the power of nutrition. So the next one will be Healthy, Sexy May. So that will be one opportunity for people to work with me. I also do one-to-one nutrition coaching. I also write. I have an ebook that I'm going to publish in about 2 weeks now, so people can plug into the information that way. And it feels like I'm missing one other element on the way I serve people. But of course, the podcast. I mean, that's truly the main reason why I do the podcast is to serve my audience, which typically is women between 40 to 55 who are dealing with menopausal symptoms. And I try to teach nutritional aspects to help them release the hot flashes, release the issues. And so that's why I show up.
Let's pinpoint on 2 of these things.
Okay.
One of them, I want to do your group coaching. I just want you to give me a range because your price is going to be different tomorrow or in 10 years. So just give me a range of like, your group coaching is probably going to fit within this range. And then also the one-on-one, the individual one-on-one mentoring is in this range. Can you just give me those 2 numbers and we can talk a little bit about like how you're going to make money through your podcast?
Yes. So right now I'm charging $355 for the 30-day group coaching program. So $355 per person.
Per person per month or per
for
6
the 30
months?
days. For
30 days.
The 1 month. Yes.
Okay. $355 and it's 1 month. Okay.
Yes.
And it's group.
Correct.
Okay.
And then it's $150 for a 45-minute consultation with the one-to-one.
Okay. I feel like there's a good chance that you're underselling yourself based on the prices that I'm hearing right now. And what I have found is when I was doing smaller amounts of money, I was working really hard. I was working a lot more hours. And even interestingly enough, my client was a harder to deal with client. They wanted their money back more often. And what I ended up doing is I went from being able to just edit someone's podcast, only edit for, I think I was charging something like $100 to edit their podcast. Okay. Back then I thought that it cost me 50. And so I wanted to at least double it. And what I ended up having by charging $100 is a lot of people that for some reason expected a lot, but also didn't get a lot. And I changed my whole thing. I changed it so that we instead would do an all-inclusive package that was $40,000 for a year. And it came with all of the editing, all the post-production, all of the show notes, all of the copy for the title to make it compelling. Like that one, your bonus episode that we mentioned in the very beginning.
Dirty little secret in my
dirty little secret about marriage. Yeah. So I decided instead of just helping people with this one small piece, I want to take over every single thing. And the client that I want somebody who's crushing it in their business, able to make hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in a month or in a year. People that are doing that or have absolutely got the potential of doing that. But having to do all of these parts of their podcast, the promotion, the writing of the show notes, emailing their guests, all this hard stuff that they had to handle was taking them away from being able to make hundreds of thousands or millions. And so I'm like, I only want to serve the top of the top, the people that can really afford this. And I want to take everything off their plate and I want to make it a package that is like, well, let's just say $40,000 instead of $355 for 1 month or $150. And then what I also have done is I've made my 1 hour coaching is $500. Now, people are like, well, how could you do that? Like, you're not a doctor. You're not an attorney. Like, how much school did you go through for podcasting? You didn't. Like, so you don't have the ability to charge $500 in an hour when these doctors and engineers and attorneys are charging $90 an hour, $250 an hour, $350 an hour. Like, how could you charge this higher amount? Well, I want to charge a premium because I actually believe that by having a 1 hour call with me, like this call that you and I are having today, Michelle, that you're getting for free only because we get to share it as a podcast episode. But it would have normally been $500. I totally believe I'm giving you more than $5,000 of value in this call. I really actually believe that. I so believe I'm going to give you $5,000. So I'm only going to charge you $500. It's a win-win. You're going to leave this call and instead of making $10 CPM, $20 CPM, $10 an episode, you're probably going to leave this call making $300, $2,000 per episode, or even per month, right? You're going to leave this call being prepared with something where you have the ability to make all of this money. And so I know that I'm worth $500, right? Because I can make you make a ton of money just by having you take good notes and follow this program. Now, it's a little bit harder for nutrition. Like, how do we really put a number on that? Some of the ways to sell that is to talk about, remember when we talked about how you sell with negative parts instead of with positive parts? It's not all rainbows and butterflies, but you want to sell using the negatives. Like, what are you avoiding? So now let's talk about, like, you can start out your copy to sell your, instead of 150 for 45 minutes, let's just call it 350 for 45 minutes.
I like it.
And you can say something, you can start out the pitch, the preparation, the call to action with, do you want to be stuck to all these different types of drugs that cost you time and money and actually give you negative parts of your health? Do you want to be addicted to or stuck buying all of these types of prescriptions for the next 20 years? Do you want to leave your family early and not be able to have the health and energy for your kids, for your spouse, to be able to blah, 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 blah? And so you share those things with the negatives, like you don't want to die early. You don't want to spend way more money. What we can probably do with you in 45 minutes for one call, $350, or it's usually $700. We're going to be doing it for $350 if you're a listener of this podcast.
That's good. That's good.
I'm going to pour into you, how do you save $600 a month on medicines and lower health so that you can have energy, vitality, and as well as saving a ton of money and time with all of these medicines that you don't want to take anyways. Schedule a call with me. It's 45 minutes and I can solve that problem for you. It's only $350. Now it sounds different. Now it feels like I want to avoid this bad stuff and $350 is more than worth it. Same thing for the $355 per month for a 1 month of group coaching. I want to share, like, remember when we were talking about your sponsor, your advertiser for your podcast? Remember how we were talking about how we wanted them, we were pouring into them using psychology that helps them know what we're trying to help them, not us making money, but them making money.
Mm-hmm.
Remember how we talked about it being 6 months? From a year to 6 months, we time anchored it from a year and said, let's just do it for 6 months.
Yes.
And then we said, because this and this and this. Well, I would say that it is a shit ton of work and effort and time and energy to bring on a sponsor for 1 month. Not only is it just better for the sponsor, but it's a crazy amount of effort to get a different sponsor every single month. You're going to maybe 1 month you'll have a sponsor, the next one you won't. And you'll work really hard and then you'll finally get the copy written and then the ad written and then you'll start playing it and then you'll have to start all over. And it's really not worth it. Even for $2,500, like Julie Holly, even for $2,500, first call, first time, remember? And she listens to this podcast. Amazing. I know she's going to hear that. And one call, one time, $2,500 a month. Well, that's for a 6-month minimum for her. She doesn't have to keep chasing them. And I don't want you, Michelle, to keep having to chase your clients. This is why I have a year contract for my clients. One of the reasons is because it actually helps them. It actually serves them. Another reason is because I don't want to have to struggle to find a client, only have them for a month, struggle to have another client, and have my income go way up and then it go way down. I like my 1-year contract. Let's just say it's $2,500 a month for somebody for advertising or something. And they're paying us $2,500 every single month for a whole year. I only have to get that one client one time, and then I'm making $2,500 a month for that client for the whole year. And for you, I don't want you to chase 350 and then not have it, and then chase it again and then not have it. I want you to build your coaching program so that it's a 6-month cohort, a 3-month cohort, a 12-month cohort, a 2-year cohort, where you have the May, I don't remember what you called it exactly, but the May
Healthy,
something.
Sexy May.
Healthy, Sexy May. Mm-hmm. So Healthy, Sexy May is we're going to start right now, and we've got 6 months or whatever until May happens, whatever. So what I would rather for you to do is be like talking about how if you want to just try the group coaching for a month, it's $1,000. You can absolutely try it. It'll be beneficial. But what I'd rather do is keep you in for 6 months, do it for just $355 a month, have a 6-month contract where it's $2,000 instead of $3,000. And you are going to be able to lose the weight, stay away from the medicines, know how to do this, call me anytime that you want, get this mini coaching, email me anytime, be part of the Facebook group, connect with others, whatever benefits you can come up with. And you're here for 6 months, and you're going to be, because it's 6 months, remember to say because it's 6 months, you're going to get, and then you outline what they're going to get. And now you have that person paying you $2,000 instead of $350. What I think you're doing, Michelle, is you're undercutting yourself. You're almost believing like, I'm not sure if it's worth it. I'm kind of like maybe even new at this, charging this, and I want it to be a win-win. And it's like hard internally to ask for the money. But if you reverse it and think about them and think, what do they really need? Well, Adam Adams's clients, they need to stay in their lane, and they need everything on their podcast to be handled for them so that they can be making all this money and only have to press record. Everything else is handled. That's what my client wants. And then now I'm going to charge a premium for it, and my company's going to do well. And I actually give a shit about my listener. I actually do, right? And my year's contract, yes, it benefits me too, but it benefits them. Michelle, a 1 month with you isn't enough. It honestly is not enough.
That's what I get back in all the exit surveys. They want more. So you are right on. You're pinpointing it. Thank you.
So now we think about the listener and how do we help them get what they really, truly want. And we build a package that's built for that person. And we build it at a price that makes sense for them as well. And then we start offering it a different way. And if they want just 1 month, it's $1,000. But if they want the real value, then they stay with you for 6 months, and it's only $355 a month. So this is part of it. It's just your approach and just your internal belief system of like your own value and who your listener is, what they're going through, and a little bit of like limiting beliefs of like your own true value. But like opening it up, and now hopefully we can bring on 3 clients a month at $2,000 because it's $355 times 6, a little over $2,000. We can bring in $3,000 a month. That's $6,000 a month of new money coming in. That's an additional, $70,000, $80,000 this year. And you are getting that money instead of, if you want to be instead, you could do both. You absolutely can. But you're getting that money instead of the $2,500 or $3,500 that you would have been making by worrying about a sponsor. And your business is making $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $100,000 a month because you're doing it this way. And with group coaching, huge benefit. You could really scale that so that, you could have dozens of clients paying you $350 a month. So yeah, I just want you to believe in your worth and ask for your worth and do it in a way that is for them, for their benefit. Do you have any last questions? We went a little over what I expected, and I don't know if you need to go, but if you have another final question, we can definitely go there.
Well, one, just thank you so much for this. You've opened up something I wasn't expecting to go there this hour. So thank you for that. And if we do have time, I would love to talk about metrics, meaning, and I don't even know if I'm using the right word, but just yesterday we reached over 1,000 downloads. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so great. And of course, celebrate. Back to the limiting beliefs. I'm celebrating all of it. Yeah. So I had to say that out loud before you burst my bubble. Like, how do I know that the podcast is doing well, and or what numbers should I be looking at or for?
Well, a number that I would like you to at least achieve is top 10% status on downloads.
Okay.
And that would be 300 downloads per episode.
Okay.
So if you're publishing, and you are, one a week, then you're probably looking at a little over 1,000 downloads every single month. Now you've hit 1,000 and it's only been a couple of months, and that's quick. That's been quick. That's remarkable. It's actually higher traction than the average podcast. And so for you to be in top 10% status, I think you'll probably be there organically by doing what you're doing, even without my help. Just do what you're doing, focus on it, and you'll most likely have your podcast easily top 10% status, like within the next 6 to 8 weeks. You'll probably be there. Great. So that's a huge benefit. You'll probably be at 300 downloads per episode. I doubt you are now, and that's okay. You probably will get there by just maintaining what you're already doing. And if you want to be in like top 1%, the big thing that I think you would want to change is one of two things, or do both. Okay. The first one is, I would like for you to put more money behind your podcast, whether it's working with my team and we're managing all this stuff, or you're finding a way to do your own Facebook ads, or you got somebody who can do Facebook ads, do YouTube ads, Google ads, whatever. I just want you to fuel the fire. Like, I want you to be able to like put something there, because you're not going to, I always use the car analogy. You're not going to be able to get from here to there if you don't put gas in the tank, and the marketing is the gas in the tank. So that's one thing that you absolutely need, is just to do your own marketing. And that's going to help you to be able to get to that status where you're getting those amount of people. The other thing that you might be able to do to get organic traction is just put out more content. So it can be hard, it can be overwhelming, but a lot of the people that are in top 1% status in their podcast and getting that traction, which is like 3,500 downloads per episode, way more than the 10%, right? Instead of 300, it's 3,500. Like 11.66 times more traction than the top 10%. And one of the best ways to do that, besides adding fuel to the fire, putting gas in your tank, whatever, marketing, it's putting out more content. And it can be hard or overwhelming to add, because even once a week is overwhelming to half the people listening. It's a lot. Mm-hmm. But if you want the traction, sometimes what you got to do is put forth a higher amount of effort. So for me, I published 6 episodes a week for a long, long time on my podcast. I'm down to 2 a week now, because we just built up a lot of episodes. But with the 6 a week, I knew why I was doing it, and it worked. If you're just going through the motions and putting out 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 episodes a week, it's hard anyways to do one. And so there's not a lot that keeps you to do it if you don't know the big why behind the why. So if you totally understand what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to accomplish, who your avatar is, what they need, and how you uniquely serve that person differently than anyone else in your space. Once you have the why behind the why, you get some kind of like motivation to push through. And that's what allowed me to be able to publish 6 a week, even though it was hard. 3 of them solo, 3 of them interview, is because I knew exactly what I wanted to achieve. And I knew that by putting out the additional content, it would help me to be able to achieve that goal. And so for you, like, I would say try to double or triple the content.
Okay.
And if you need motivation, go back to why do you even have this podcast? What is it trying to achieve? And then push it through for a while and do the fuel to the fire, the gas to the tank marketing. Between the two, I believe that your listener base will grow. And so by where you are, you crossed 1,000 after 12 episodes. It's awesome. And by doing some of these things, you might even cross 1,000 per individual episode. So 10x your listener base now, just by tweaking those, adding fuel to the fire, and also putting out more content.
Sweet. Thank you. I feel so saturated right now and
awesome.
So optimistic. This has been amazing. Oh my goodness.
Thank you for jumping on. Thank you for letting us record this and share the value with other people. I really appreciate it. I'm going to end the episode with this. If you're listening, you're a podcast listener, you're checking out this episode, 2 things. A, you can go back to episodes 1 through 6, which is a course for you to have a top podcast. So I want to differentiate this from having a podcast where only you and your mom listen. I want you to have lots of listeners, and episodes 1 through 6 is a course to help you have a top podcast. So go back. I'm calling back some episodes. Check it out if you haven't yet. That'll be really, really valuable. Secondly, the very next episode after this episode is a solo episode where I've really actually crafted something just for you, the listener, that I believe can help you. And I want you to stick with it. Don't go anywhere. Just check out the next episode. I will see you there.